أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Welcome to the Ask Awareness Day. Welcome to the Alliance Française. And on a hot afternoon on a Sunday, if the city of Karachi can have so many people willing to take out time for self-knowledge, we can't all be lost. Without further ado, I would like to invite Khanam Muna Bilgrami to share with us the genesis of Ask.
Assalamu alaikum, good afternoon, and a warm welcome to all of you. Thank you for being here. I can see many familiar faces in the audience, some students who are already enrolled on the Ask Beta run, the trial launch, and many new faces, and some of whom I hope will also enroll to become students on the Ask program. The brief PowerPoint, which unfortunately wasn't viewable in its fullness, will have given you a brief taste of the Academy of Self-Knowledge. We now hope to share with you something more than just a taste, at least a morsel or two, if not a mini meal. The Academy of Self-Knowledge is the brainchild of Shaykh Fadhlalla Haeri, and as such it is a major milestone in the development of his own work. However, as Shaykh Fadhlalla Haeri has said throughout his years of teaching, he's not bringing anything new. But while the wisdom teachings that he has been privileged to share with thousands of students all over the world over the past 26 years come from the wellspring of Islam, the ability, approach, and style of imparting this knowledge is distinctly shaped by the gifts that Allah has bestowed upon him and his drive to discover the interconnecting thread that weaves through existence, both seen and unseen. I'd like, therefore, to share with you a little of Shaykh Fadhlalla's background so that we can give a context to this afternoon's proceedings. By no means do I wish to engage in a eulogy. For that he would have to be dearly departed and in the next life. I simply wish to enable people here today to move beyond the unfamiliar to the familiar and beyond any preconceived notions about the purpose of Ask and the people behind it. We live in a world where so many so-called teachers of truth seem to have a hidden agenda for personal gain of whatever variety. I would like to leave it to you yourselves to make your own assessments. Shaykh Fadhlalla is an acknowledged master of self-knowledge whose role as a teacher, mentor and guide was the natural byproduct of his own quest for self-fulfillment. As some of you may already know, Shaykh Fadhlalla was born and brought up in Iraq, in a community that, according to his recollection, reflected an ideal Muslim society, imbued with the values of neighborly care and concern, worship and remembrance of the One, personal concern with one's own accountability to God and the wider social community, a place where religious and spiritual knowledge was respected and regarded as the highest achievements of man, where enlightened men in that society were effectively followed. But his world was also changing, and as he grew into a young man, he naturally became aware of the realpolitik of the wider world around him. This awareness became more focused as he went abroad for further study to the UK, US and France, and like many Eastern scholarship students before him, he discovered a more materially advanced society with many similar ethical values to his own, though actually very different, and questions began to arise. Returning to serve his country in the petroleum industry, Shaykh Fadhlalla was soon borne aloft on a swelling tide of the oil boom development of the 70s, and his worldly career took him from Iraq to all over the Middle East. All the while, he was aware that the Muslims in the East were losing their traditional religious reference points. The point from which all new things were once measured and assessed was no longer the main point of reference. In fact, in those giddy days, of people were indiscriminately drunk with the elixir of modernization and material gains of development. With everything in the outer all shiny and new, it was not possible to see what was being compromised and lost in social and spiritual values. But from Shaykh Fadhlalla's then position in the thick of things, in the eye of the storm, he had a privileged vantage point and was able to observe and reflect on the new direction. Sincerity in a quest for enlightenment is always met with gratification. Seek and you shall find, ask and you shall be given. Allah's provision is such that all is already provided. It just has to be found and uncovered. Shaykh Fadhlalla Haeri was guided to discovering his spiritual provision through his readings and meeting with self-realized masters whose egos had been sublimated by a higher knowledge that freed them from the confusions and role-play fantasies of the human condition. This process was greatly aided by the fact that he had access to all the seminal and original texts of the Islamic tradition through their original languages of Arabic and Persian. Shaykh Fadhlalla found that he was able to decode the conceptual language appropriately for the modern mind, which he realized was characterized by high rationality with little attention given to the intuitive and almost no referencing to the heart. Arising out of his own awakening, Shaykh Fadhlalla put all his material and spiritual energies and energetic resources towards sharing the revitalizing teachings of original Islam with those seekers who sought meaning and transformation. He established charitable trusts with branches in the UK and the US, Pakistan and India, a publishing house, an institute for Quranic studies, and businesses that support Muslims and enable them to interact with others fruitfully. He has written many books, mostly in English, some in Arabic, several of which have been translated into French, Greek, Spanish, Russian, Finnish, and Indonesian, and many of his lectures have been transformed into books as well. But just as every human being experiences continuous growth and development throughout their lives, so too do the spiritually enlightened among us, and Shaykh Fadhlalla is no exception to that. He has reached a point, he has told me, in his own evolution where he feels it is time to talk less and concentrate on repackaging the life science of what the path of Islam truly offers in a way that is appropriate to contemporary man. Now, the knowledge that Shaykh Fadhlalla expounds and shares is as old as Adam himself. Indeed, the truth is self-evident, but man is veiled by his own illusions and therefore cannot perceive. The Academy of Self-Knowledge is therefore a bringing together of the primordial teaching of self-knowledge, how to understand the self, how to transcend the self without denying it, how to liberate the self from the chains of its own making, from its presumptions and assumptions, so that life is lived to the very full in every moment, whether in expansion or contraction. Shaykh Fadhlalla does not see himself as a revivalist or as a reformer. Through the Academy of Self-Knowledge, he simply intends to make accessible, in a language which we can understand, the map of the self, the vehicle and license for the journey, and the accurate reading of the overall situation, the weather forecast, if you like. The Ask course is, if you will, an unbundling of the spiritual sciences of Islam, freed from the tyranny and baggage of Muslims' sloganeering and religious homilies, not to mention sectarian competitiveness and other divisive doctrinal debates. Indeed, in the first module there is no mention of Islam, let alone Islamic terminology. For true knowledge, haqq, must stand the test of time and space and place regardless of culture and language. Once the student has got the bearings of the self and the self in relation to others, to creation and its source, then the course moves on to the elements necessary for the journey. Module 2 then is the path of transformation on the level of meaning, how to perfect one's ibadah or worship. Without meaning, ritual is worthless, We live in a time where mere ritual is simply not enough for people such as ourselves. Once meaning is attained, it is counterbalanced by the wisdom that everything has a form which must be honored, and the best of forms are the divinely revealed prescriptions, the legacy of the prophets. Having imbibed the prophetic prescriptions, we need one more vital essential element of preparation, Module 3. The Prophet knew himself, knew his Lord, and had his ibadah. But everything he did, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, had a context and a timing. Module 3 is about equipping the student with enough insight and understanding into the world as it is, so as to gauge the appropriateness of correct action. What use is correct action or a good deed if the timing is wrong or the circumstances cause it to be rejected? His discoveries and insights can be summarized in realizing the foundation of the human paradox of being both worldly and non-worldly. The world of rationality and reasoning has its clear laws and codes, and within the heart of the human being, it meets the heavenly world, which is subject to neither time nor space. Once we realize that these two domains are not the same but complement each other, then the inherent personal and societal source of conflict will resolve without resolutions. So for those who yearn to know, for whom the mundane and the mediocre in life is not enough, who strive for excellence in their own beingness, the Academy of Self-Knowledge is a huge stepping stone that will bring them to the shore of the vast seas of lights, enable them to sail on the seas of lights, and be continually refreshed and delighted by its perfection and beauty in humility and overflowing gratitude. Thank you.
It is interesting and powerful to realize that while Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is closer to us than our jugular vein, it is we ourselves who are not that close unto Him. How then does this distance and closure measure up? It is therefore with as a sense of privilege and pride that I now turn to the Dean of the Academy of Self-Knowledge, Sidi Hussam Rauf, to share with us an answer to the question, the need for ask, or in other words, why ask? So it is not why, it should have been asked why. So let us turn to Sidi Hussam.
ونور الأبصار وضيائها وروح الأرواح وسر بقائها وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. السلام عليكم. In a hadith Qudsi, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, I was a treasure and I wanted to be known, so I created. So we are part of this creation that Allah has so fabulously, so beautifully created. But the pinnacle, the top of the pyramid, is the creation of man and woman. This creation has a great potential, which each one of us here is seeking to reach that potential, whether we know it or don't know it. But we are all seekers, trying to find the ultimate reality in us. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in His justice and in His mercy, has given each one of us an equal share. When in the Quran it says, وَنَفَخْتُ فِيهِ مِنْ رُوحِي, and I have blown in him, in Adam, from my soul. So what is this nafkh? What is this blowing? Is it just air? It is an essence. It is a treasure that Allah has given each one of us by this nafkhat al-ruh, because it engulfs, it contains a capsule of all knowledges that is and to be and was on this creation. So this knowledge that we seek, it's already in us. It's already within us. It is locked. And it is our endeavors to do this unlocking. Allah has asked all the arwah before we came to being as we are now, Alastu bi Rabbikum, am I not your Lord? And everybody said yes. So this confirmation of us that Allah is our Lord, we have created a relationship, the relationship between rububiyyah and ubudiyyah. So we are subjects to this law of ubudiyyah and rububiyyah. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He created us, He gave us this ruh, which is unseen. Nobody has ever seen a ruh coming or going. And then the body. So we are a unique creature which has both the seen and the unseen, the body and the soul. It's very easy to concentrate on the body. Everybody can see the action. But the unseen part is the difficult. And this is one thing which we as Muslims have neglected. Although in the Quran it says that we believe in the unseen, but we hardly interact with the unseen or want to do that, because it's easy to come to the seen and act or interact with it. Allah in mercy has created and sent all His messengers and prophets to guide the people, to make sure that this bondage of rububiyyah and ubudiyyah is established and people follow the code of conduct that Allah has prescribed, so that people can create and can progress and can reach their ultimate reality only through these steps that Allah has given us. And then all the messages that came in time, it was one message. It was a message of submission to our Lord. So it was a message of Islam all the way down. There is no different religions. There's a progress. There is an evolution of the message. The message that Allah has given to Adam is one little thing, one simple thing. Don't go near the tree. But this message, this code of conduct changed as humanity changed, as complication changed, as time passed by, people needed more. And then finally, the final message of our beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it was the final message and the message which is for all time and for all people. And to us, it is the divine revelation from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through the Quran that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that he had taken on his heart, and he revealed it as it was revealed to him, word by word. So he's done his duty. He has struggled to make sure that every word that he has received, he passed. And as a result of this great message, an effulgence of civilization was created. There was a great civilization of Islam that moved all the way to the borders of China, most of Europe, all of North Africa. There was the science, there was the technology, there was the literature, mathematics. All aspects of civilization was increased and developed by original thought by the Muslims. So for a long time, the Muslims were in the front in everything, in all aspects of life. But suddenly, within the last 300, 400, 500 years, everything has changed. Suddenly we find ourselves, we are followers. We are not original thinkers anymore. We are consumers. We are no longer manufacturers. We are no longer the main traders. We are no longer a power of any kind. We have lost the battle. We have lost the race in every way. It is really a very sad situation to see the situation we are in. And it's no wonder that most of the young people are bitter and are angry, because they cannot reconcile one history which was so great with what we have in our hands today. So really, what has happened? What do we do? Where do we go from here? What we have inherited is some dry rituals and a history which is half the truth. In fact, even less than half of the truth, because it gave us a history of the kings and the sultans. It's not the history of the people who struggled, the people who had to fight for their liberty, for their justice. The Mutawakkil era, when it was finished, they found he had 8,000 harem in his palaces. 8,000. And when the Fatimites in Egypt were conquered, there were 12,000 harem in the palaces. Can you imagine? 12,000. These are the sultans and the kings that we have had, but no mention of the struggle of the people who wanted to get justice and to get the right social justice, equal shares. It has all gone. So it's no wonder today we find young people committing suicide, because it does not make sense anymore. Where do we go from here? I remember, with regards to the traditionals or the rituals, I was praying in a mosque somewhere here in Pakistan, and I was in as much as of a khushu' as I can put myself in. Suddenly somebody put on my head a kufi made of straw, and I really jumped. I mean, to them, that I must, when I pray, I must have this thing on my head. You see, this ritual thing that people emphasize. People say you cannot walk in the street as a man with a short sleeve. You cannot pray without a kufi. These are rituals. These are the minor issues of our tradition, of our religion. Our religion has an essence, has got a purpose in life. These are things which have been lost, and what we try to do is to re-establish them and to make them available to everybody. In time that we have today, Allah says in the Quran, إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُغَيِّرُ مَا بِقَوْمٍ حَتَّى يُغَيِّرُ مَا بِأَنفُسِهِمْ. Allah will not change our situation as it is now unless we change ourselves. But what is this self? Myself, yourself. We talk about the self. Where is it? Is myself the same as yourself? So unless we decipher and find the real knowledge of the self, we will not be able to move 1 inch, because it is the barrier between us and our Creator. It's the barrier between us and the reality. It is a barrier between us and what is inside us. Allah has given us that gift. Allah has given us that treasure. But it is the wall, it's the barrier between us and that treasure that Allah has given us. It is in our deen, in our practice of the deen, when we follow the ethics, when we follow the akhlaq, if we follow the sunnah of the Prophet, everything that he did was to diminish the self, to control the self, the lower self, the dog in us, the wolf in us, and to elevate what is good in us. If we do that, if we can control what is the low, the higher will come up. Then we will have access to the treasure within us. So as Muna Khanim was describing the various modules, the first module is needed for us to know who we are, where do we come from, what is the meaning of heart, what is the meaning of this throbbing thing. Is it the heart that we talk about, or is it something else? When I die, what happens to my soul? Does it stay with me in the grave? Does it move? There's so many questions that we can ask today if we want to, but very little answers we get. All the answers are already available, but you have to go into volumes and volumes of books. If you want to read the Tasawwuf of Ibn Arabi or Ghazali, there are thousands and thousands of books and volumes. Who has got the time today to go and look at these? Who has got the patience to look at a book without even an index? A yellow book with 100 pages, 300 pages, 1,000 pages. You don't know where you start, where you end. It's a difficult task, but we are all seeking, we all wanted to know what is our reality. We have lost contact with ourselves. We have lost contact with our reality. We have lost contact with our ancestors. There is no link between the past and the present. All the leaders that we have, sooner or later, they either shot or pushed to one side without benefiting from them, without referring to them. And it's a great tragedy that we have a situation like that today. Imam Ali says that your sickness is in you and the remedy is within you. So it is a sickness that we have, but we have to find the remedy, and the remedy is in us. The remedy is within us, but how do we get to that key and find it so that we can move and find and meet our reality again? And the modules that were described, each one after the other, put us in different steps so that we will be able to reach. All the rituals as well as the practice of our deen, it's all to help us to get to that final stage of reaching the level of al-insan al-kamil, the perfect being. It is possible for each one of us, but it depends on the sincerity, our sincerity to reach. So the material that we have in our hands, that Shaykh Fadhlalla, may Allah bless him, has put down so eloquently, it is knowledge and material to be internalized, to be taken, to be consumed, not to be read and forgotten. It is knowledge for transformation. When we say transformation, that means we change, we get transformed. My thinking change, my attitude change, my walking in the street change, my mode of ibadah change. These are essential features of transformation. And the language that the programs have put is a different language. It may sound slightly difficult, but please read them and read them again, because it is not an ordinary newspaper reading or a book that you read for pleasure or for entertainment. It is for our uplifting, for us to change, for us to move from one mode to the other. And Module 3, which is a very important, because we live in a world which is full of problems, full of greed and speed. And unless we have a reference, unless we have a guide, it will be very difficult to reach and move to the safe shores of peace and tranquility. I hope and pray that Allah will help us to move in that boat to reach that ultimate peace and tranquility. And I thank Allah and I thank Shaykh Fadhlalla for helping us to find that channel, that stream, to move each one of us to the shores of Mahabbah. May Allah bless you and protect you all. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Liusan. In a few minutes, we've had this extremely wide-ranging snapshot of our situation at present, the glory of our past, the solutions that are being given to us, which seem to be individual or communal suicide, that sort of thing, and then, of course, a hint of a way out. Thank you very much, sir. That was a very, very wide-ranging. We now turn to this with permission that I now request Shaykh Fadhlalla Haeri to speak to us on becoming and being. Shaykh Fadhlalla.
أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه المنتجبين. Assalamu alaikum. Good afternoon to you. Welcome to a warm afternoon. But may Allah keep our hearts warmer and our heads cooler. I thank Allah for the opportunity of being able to share with you what matters most in all of our lives. And that is, as we have already heard, is who are we? What are we looking for? Where is the map that we can drive along to arrive to the city? All of this life is a movement. Where is it to? Why? What am I leaving behind? What am I facing? Each one of us essentially is the same, as Sidi Hussam has emphasized. We are a paradox of an energy field, entity, reality called Ruh, soul. Each one of us has the same soul. That is where Allah's justice is. Each one of us, within us, have this energizing battery which has within it all the patterns that can be perceived as we grow. If the pattern of generosity or courage or fear is not ingrained in us, we will not experience these feelings or modes. Each one of us contain this essential, intrinsic, imprinted design. As we grow in life, we begin to evolve into higher consciousness. To begin with, it's the child consciousness. Then more and more emotions begin to grow. Then the intellect begins to grow. The faculty of reasoning, cause and effect. What shall I do so that I don't get hurt? What can I do that I maintain a good health? What can I do so that I don't suffer from feeling hatred in my heart? And. So all of us will get subjected as we grow to this vast and deep panorama. Therefore, what we will experience is essentially the same, but not necessarily in the same order. or with the same ease or difficulty. Every life is unique in its way of having its biography, and yet we're all the same. We've all had difficulties, rejections, objections, ignorances, self-infatuations, self-delusions. Every one of us have been through these pitfalls as well as the smooth runnings every now and then. We love smooth running. We love equilibrium. We love harmony. We love peace. And yet we are subjected to disharmony and a lot of aggression and warfare and discord and difficulties. Who brings about this situation, both at the individual level as well as at the society? It is you and I who do it. Allah Azza wa Jal describes it to us so beautifully in the Quran. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. وَلَوْ أَنَّ أَهْلَ الْقُرَىٰ آمَنُوا وَاتَّقُوا لَفَتَحْنَا عَلَيْهِمْ بَرَكَاتٍ مِنَ السَّمَاءِ وَالْأَرْضِ. And if people of towns, villages, or nations truly live their faith, what is faith other than a notion or a trust that I will come to know? To know what? To know that this so-called me or this so-called personality is only a shell. Where is my personality when I am asleep? Where is my personality when I am in a coma? How distorted is this personality when I am sick with high fever? So where is it? Every one of us is looking for stability, and yet this boat of ours seems to be listing in the high sea of existence. Where is it that I find that reliable, constant core of referencing? It is all in us. وَنَفْسٍ وَمَا سَوَّاهَا فَأَلْهَمَهَا فُجُورَهَا وَتَقْوَاهَا. So as Muna said earlier, I am not bringing anything new. If it is original, if it is fundamental, if it is to do with truth, truth is forever true. But realities change. كُلُّ يَوْمٍ هُوَ فِي شَأْنٍ. Allah describes to us, and every nafs can attain taqwa and fujur, destruction of itself or reconstruction in a manner that is constant and reliable. So we have the map. We now need to follow it and live it and be transformed by it. Everyone in this life is suffering from information overload, but almost transformation under non-existent. Forget it. More and more information and less that inner transformation. The reason is simple. Life has changed. The needs that we perceive, not necessarily the needs that are real, many of them are wants, have become so much that you have to struggle hours every day in order to pay your bills. Even then you are indebted to banks and to credit cards and whatever else. And yet one is not happy. What a miserable life. What has happened? Now, in truth, nothing has happened. Nothing changes. Allah's light is ever the same. It is the thickness of the rainbows and the manifestation of the shadows that change. I am not advocating return to a very simple, primitive life in a little hut. I am advocating a balanced life. If you are pursuing worldly exercises and projects, you must balance them by a higher inner awakening. The example is like a sailing boat. You have a large hull, you put in it a lot of goods. If you don't have strong masts or engines or ability to drive to the shore, it will list and it will flounder. It's better to have light ship if you are not sure of a strong mast. As many of you know, so many human beings go astray by the power of money or political power or any other power, unless they have within them a reference point that balances that fantasy that now you are very powerful. So what I'm advocating is an awakened spiritual dimension so that we cope in this life, so that you drive along the highways and the byways and the skyways without all the risks of sudden, if you like, a major collapse. It is like the original traditional teaching of ilm al-yaqeen, ayn al-yaqeen, haqq al-yaqeen. You are first informed that the traditional example is like a fire. You have seen a fire, you know what a forest is, and now you are informed the forest is on fire. So you get a picture in your mind. Then ayn al-yaqeen, when you actually see the forest on fire, it is confirmed to you. Your iman now becomes ihsan. You know, Allah knows, Allah sees you. It is not just some fantasy faith. I have a trust and I have faith. No, you know, it's no longer subject to discussion. You know it is true. مَا وَدَّعَكَ رَبُّكَ وَمَا قَلَى. Your Lord has never left you to go astray. There is only His will and His patterns and His ways. His ways include also the ditch. You fall in it and you injure yourself. And His way includes also a flight that has no end. These are all His numerous layers of patterns and designs. And what you and I desperately want is to make our will coinciding with Allah's will. There comes success. In that, you see perfection. A moment of perfection, you have succeeded, done. And then next moment again, you have to struggle to have another point of done, until there is only done. And that will only come when you have reached haqq al-yaqeen. You are in the fire and consumed by the forest fire. Another example is like seeing a beautiful moon in a veranda overlooking the sea. You like everybody to come and share it with you. Come and see, especially with the clouds covering part of the moon and the breeze and all that. So this is, first of all, ilm al-yaqeen. Then they come and see it, is ayn al-yaqeen, they have seen it. And haqq al-yaqeen, don't be too consumed by the ecstasy of the sight in case you fall off the veranda and kill yourself. This is why module 3 in our academy's work is important. Is it the right time? Is it the right place? Is it the right? You may be just. You may have within you a fire against abusiveness and injustice. You may have within you the ability to have all the courage and the sacrifice. It is not the right time. There are 7 tyrants surrounding your house. What on earth can you do? So it's not enough to know yourself. It's not enough to have perfected your ibadah and have died in it. Equally, it's important to read the atmospherics. That is why the prophetic teachings repeatedly say, do not talk to the people unless they can understand what you are saying, and at the right time and in the right way. You know. So you talk to the child differently to the mature person. You talk to the sick person very differently to somebody who is all there in their mind and in their faculties. You make allowances in order to make contact. The whole business is about contact, relationship. There is nothing in existence unless it is relating to something else. All of it is relationship. For that reason, if your relationship with the ultimate, with the absolute, is right, every other relationship can fit. If that is not right, you will bump along, as most of us, from one difficulty to another, one tragedy to another, one discord to another, and so on and so on. If you believe that Allah is the All-Merciful, then question yourself, why are all of these obstacles? Every one of us, every day in our life, we like to remove so many obstacles. Often we are rendered helpless. Often we are humbled. And more often we are confused. It's quite natural if you go up to anybody with a quiet voice, you say, really, I'm very fond of you, but you are confused. You will see they'll be suddenly shocked. If they are honest, they say, you're quite right. So where is Allah's rahmah in all of us at least quite a bit of our lifetime, quite a bit of the day or the night or in between? We are confused. Where is the rahmah? We as Muslims believe in the All-Merciful. Why don't we question ourselves that now I believe He is All-Merciful, but I don't see the mercy, I'm confused. But we don't do that. We brush it under the carpet, under the guise of I am a religious person. Religious person, but you are dishonest. The Prophet ﷺ says Surah Al-Ikhlas is more than a third of the Quran. Ikhlas is sincerity. Why can't you be sincere to yourself? Say, no, I'm angry. Really, I am most upset. I'm supposed to love my father, but I really am very angry with him. I think it's quite a healthy start. Otherwise, you will be pumped full of pills by the friendly psychologists. Depression. More than 10-15% of the people in this country are classified as depressed. And the ordinary GPs are allowed to dispense what they call friendly antidepressants. Not very high, strong, if you like, psychiatric pills, but just so as you are depressed. Yeah, I can help you. This is a pill. It is like the warning that we get for a headache. It's a warning that something is not right, but you disconnect that wonderful signal that Allah in His rahmah provided us, which is pain in the head. We cut it with the scissors of an aspirin. It's madness. And then complications arise, and more doctors and more pharmaceuticals, and you end up in a valley that the byproducts, that all of the other unexpected, indirect side products, side effects, side diseases catch you up until one is crippled. Is that what we want in life? If you're serious, you will discover why are your negative thoughts. How can I turn my awareness of my impatience with my child or with my husband or with my wife to patience? As Muslims, you have all the advantages. You believe Allah is Al-Sabur. Everybody recites the 99 names or have them on a placard somewhere on the walls. More and more on the wall, less and less in the hearts. So Al-Sabur is number 99. The patient. I was sharing with Professor Abbas before we came, Allah's patience is 7.5 billion years, and here we are still mucking about. Took this earth and where we are, all that. So why can't we be patient for a few hours, few days, what does it matter another 1,000 years for Islam to be truly effulgent? Be patient. So transform your impatience, a vice called impatience, into virtue called patience. Transform your, if you like, inability to be disciplined into Allah's consistency. وَلَن تَجِدَ لِسُنَّةِ اللَّهِ تَحْوِيلًا. Allah Azza wa Jal says, and you never find Allah's ways will change this day or tomorrow. His physical laws do not change. The law of gravity will not change simply because you are a pious person. By defying it, you fall and you'll break your neck, quite appropriately. So essentially what we need is to have that final stage of Ayn al-Haq, Haqq al-Yaqeen, Haqq al-Haq, to know that essentially you are made of two entities. One is a divine soul that knows all the great attributes of Allah, and the other is its shadow. Most of us living this miserable, flickery life of shadows. That's why we are afraid of death. You hear Muslims talking about somebody who died very unfortunate. How can you have faith in the life hereafter and talk about death as unfortunate? Why do you want the poor fellow to have more miserable years? Or the poor mother to suffer more and more her angina and her arthritic thing because of all the bad diet, all the excess sugar and white flour and God knows what else we are pumping into our body? Why? What? We are denying then Allah's rahmah. Allah says, وَوَسِعَتْ رَحْمَتِي كُلِّ شَيْءٍ. That means Allah's rahmah is in every instant. If you don't see it, then your eyes are not trained to see the true event behind the shadow. We as Muslims have the greatest advantage of waking up to our inner spiritual guiding content and guidelines and the hook of Allah Azza wa Jal, which leads us to His perfection and to His glory. But we have to live it. The Prophet ﷺ says, and there are so many who are in constant salat, but there is nothing for them other than tired knees. So, salat implies a recharge, a spiritual recharge. If you are performing your salat and your mind is somewhere else, then it is like pretending to recharge your cellular phone. It will not work if you do not plug it in properly, if you do not have the electric connection properly. Salat implies disappearance from this world into the higher world, into the inner world, into the divine world, without denying the outer world. So the higher side in us nowadays is undernourished. The mental side, the causal side, is over-energized. What shall I do now? Where is this? Where can I get more? How can I be safe? Where is my next meal? You are fortunate in Pakistan in being surrounded by a much higher population of people who are almost on the edge of hunger. Look at them. Why are you so over-concerned? Why are we over-concerned in stuffing our fridges and complain about the electricity authorities' unreliable electrical supply? I think they are doing God's work. You know, really. By you remembering at least those who don't have any fridge. What is wrong with us being a bit more down, you know? Part of the injustices that is going on in the world is this big gap between the clever people who know how to manipulate and make more money and the 2/3 of the world population who do not have water to drink. Now, these are the reasons that we Muslims have greater responsibility towards ourselves and towards the world. And these are part of the reasons that why we collectively are also being given such a bad press. We deserve it. No point to try to change the press, change ourselves. If we live truly as representatives, as followers of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, then the whole world will run after us. But if we have our own fantasy that, yes, I have looked at the Quran, or we have 9 different Qurans in the shelves in the house. The Quran itself declares on the voice of the Prophet, said, what is wrong with my people that they made this Quran mahjura? That means they have not been transformed by it. They're all pleading to it, talking about it, but not living it. They've not been brought to life by it. It's a big difference between taking a meal and being nourished by it and discussing a menu forever. If you have been to Japan, you would find in many of the restaurants, they have these beautiful, perfect plastic replicas in the window of the meal that you may be getting. Often these plastic replicas look nicer than the meal itself, in fact, when you go into a restaurant. Really. My last visit was, I just asked for one of these dishes in the window. Don't give me the food. So this is what we are doing nowadays, you know. Really, all discussing our Quran. More Quran discussion, more spiritual, more religious discussion, more mosques. But what about the mosque in your heart? Is that become a mosque? Many of our great Sufi masters refer to Kaaba as Ka'bat al-Hajar, the Kaaba of stone. Meaning that you have within you your Kaaba. That you are running around like a semi-mad person, not knowing from where to where. So why not run around the Kaaba doing your ibadah such that you will discover that what you are seeking is your real self. But it starts by despising the lower self, despising our meanness, our inconsistency, all of the fantasies we have of the so-called personality. That's why we produce these funny religious personalities. They walk with a much bigger ego. You know, he's very spiritual. What is all this nonsense? We are made of both. One ruh, a spirit beyond limitations, and a whole bundle of mucus. So what is so great about us? What's great is about Allah's creation and what He has put in us. If you do not despise the lower, you will never have access to the higher. This is the condition of Allah Azza wa Jal. وَأَلْهَمَهَا فُجُورَهَا قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ زَكَّاهَا وَلَا تُزَكُّوا أَنفُسَكُمْ, Allah Azza wa Jal says elsewhere in the Quran. And don't put yourself high. I have izzat, I have this. As you have seen with our people, the Arab world. We entered Jerusalem as Muslims, ready for anything, because we knew we are going to the Akhirah, and this life is only a stepping stone to what will come gloriously afterwards. So there was courage, there was compassion, there was respect for the women and the children, and we were kicked out of it as Arabs. Same thing in Andalus, same. These are Allah's way. It is not to denigrate us. Allah's ways will not change. It is us who need to make our ways coincide with Allah's ways. Therefore, we are essentially made of the sublime and the ridiculous together. Whenever you are subjected to the ridiculous and the changing world, refer to the sublime. Refer to the non-changing light, and you will get some stability. Every one of us is like in your own personal boat in this ocean of existence. You need to take care of the little boat. You need to make sure that there are no holes and whatever. But what is the use of all of that if you're not constantly referring to the horizon? You're going to go round and round and round, and you end up nowhere, as most people do. وَإِنَّ أَكْثَرَهُمْ لَا يَعْقِلُونَ أَكْثَرَهُمْ لَا يَبْصُرُونَ أَكْثَرَهُمْ لَا يَفْقَهُونَ. Allah describes it. The majority of human beings are like this. And you and I can only do what we can. وَمَا أَنْتَ عَلَيْهِمْ بِمُسَيْطِرٍ وَمَا أَنْتَ عَلَيْهِمْ بِوَكِيلٍ. Don't take it upon you that you are the redeemer of humanity, or your father even, or your mother, or your child. You can't do that. You can do what you can. No more and no less. If you are doing what you can, then you are always wholesome and healthy. If you are overdoing it, underdoing it, then you are either guilty or overstressed. And you punish yourself by all the other symptoms for not being on the edge all the time. Do what you can as well as you can, but you must be inwardly content. If you are not inwardly content, you will have no compassion. How can you have compassion for all the criminals? Wasn't our glorious Prophet compassionate with everyone? If he was not, no one would have been with him. Most of the people around him were culprits. Many of the people who excelled also were in fact semi-gangsters. But by Islam, the nafs was reformed. And as a result, they were transformed. This is the message we hope that we can bring forward, highlight from our traditions, from the Quran and the prophetic teaching. As Mona said earlier, if it is true, then it cannot be new. Allah has no beginning and no end. The truth has no time. But it is the applicability and the highlighting of the disease of the age that we need to, in a way, address. Every age has its challenges, has its difficulties, and has the good side and the downside. The time we are living in is a time of that human beings can live better life, with better hygiene, with better diet, with better mental quality, and so on. And therefore we have now the average life is longer than it was 50 years ago, much longer than it was 100 years ago. But the quality of life appears to be fairly good with a small proportion of the world population, and is not so good at all with the large, vast majority of the population. This is where, if you like, this global thing that we are addressing nowadays, the world is like a one village. It has its downside, it has its upside. The tsunami that occurred not long ago gave you a small example of how the abusiveness of, if you like, this world hegemony and world monopoly has also got certain advantage. That the people of the Western world rallied much faster to the help of the sufferers of the tsunami than their governments did. The governments had to run after them. So there is always goodness and badness in this existence, within us and outside us. See the good side and go to the ultimate goodness. There cannot be an iota of goodness in existence that you and I experience unless there is the seed of badness in it. Good food, good companionship. Good companionship, you expect much higher level of harmony. So your friend or your companion will be blamed much quicker than someone else who you don't know. Goodness and badness are never separable. Life and death are never separable. There is no separation between the opposites, but there is one perfect eternal goodness, and that is the light of Allah Azza wa Jalla. There is no badness in it. The badness or the shadows are only for us to turn to the light. Adam was in the garden and did not know what perfections were because he simply lived them. And it was infinite, so he had no idea about time. And that is why now you and I have to realize there is such a thing called time and watch and lifetime, and we are desperate in order to get the whole story right. But you don't get the story right only by referring to the outside world, because you cannot change it for any durable time. It's much easier to change your own mindset, your health, your attitude, than changing the world or other people. Change your inner dimension and your vista, and you will never be hurt. And you know that nobody can ever hurt you, and nobody can ever add or subtract anything from you, because the real you is a ruh. And the ruh belongs to its creator and reflects the creator. In order to get to that firm inner conviction, which does not require any discussion, you and I have to relate my cosmology, your makeup to the outer world. And Allah will challenge you. Allah will always challenge you. He promises you in the Quran, أَحَسِبَ الْإِنسَانُ أَنْ يُتْرَكَ سُدًى. Do you think you'll ever be left without being challenged? أَحَسِبَ النَّاسُ أَنْ يُتْرَكُوا أَنْ يَقُولُوا آمَنَّا وَهُمْ لَا يُفْتَنُونَ. Do you think anybody will ever be left to say that I have faith and I have trust, and you will not be afflicted to see how good is your trust, how real? To who are you trusting? Is it your father, your boss, the bank manager, who? Or are you trusting in Allah? You see. So these are the messages that can be internalized for the serious and sincere students of this modest academy and offering that we have. So all of human suffering is in order for us to turn to the ever-present rahmah and divine offering. It's up to you. Some people get used to suffering and make a point of it, and they enter into this vast, if you like, gatherings of victimhood. We are all sufferers, don't you know? Yes, for 1400 years we are now. Why are you suffering? Where is Allah's rahmah there? Where you become used to your suffering. But don't you know I am sick? You must make allowance for me. Now everybody has to bow, because he or she had been so stupid in their diet and in their attitude, now they are sick. Often in families you find the sick child gets most of the attention, and all that wonderful 2, 3 others, they are neglected. Because they are all right, it's my only, my behimen is not very well, So if the child is intelligent enough in manipulating parents, he or she will be permanently ill. You've got the parents like a ring around your finger. Really. Sharrul baliyati ma yudhak. The Prophet's teaching is the worst affliction is that which makes you laugh. So what we have is a modest program that is suitable for our present day prevailing sicknesses and illnesses. And those of you who are serious, you're welcome, and those of you who are not welcome, nothing will ever change. The nur of Allah never ever changes. The rainbows and the shadows ever change. As Rumi said, if you have heard this, then nothing matters, and if you have not heard this, nothing matters. And I repeat the same. Wassalamu alaikum.
I seek information. But is there a reason for all that information?
Thank you.
It is to reform myself for the disinformation that I've had before. But is that reformation any good if as the result of it I become holier than thou, arrogant, violent, seeking other people's faults rather than my own? No, I seek transformation. This then would be perhaps a way of capsulizing, Shaykh Sahib allows me, of this being and becoming a being, and the purpose for which ask has been created and for which this course is offered. I would like to request Brother Abbas Bilrami to join us on the table, and the floor is now open for questions and answers.
If there are no questions, perhaps I'd just like to welcome the representatives that we have amongst us here this afternoon from the Ask Centres worldwide. We have associate centres in India, and we have a representative, Mumtaz Khan, here visiting us. Please stand up. And Mumtaz has arrived from India. She represents Ask India. We also have a representative from Scandinavia, Abdul Rahman Wundergaard. And also we have a representative from Britain, from UK. The main centres are UK, South Africa, and now inshallah Pakistan. And the UK representative is Shabaz Bhatti, who is over there. So during tea, which will shortly be announced, do please prevail upon these people and the Ask team in Karachi, small and growing though it is. Can I point out Tammy Bawani?
There she is.
Yes, there she is. And Surur Mahmood and Shazia Haji over by the books. And there is also Ruxana Kazi, who is a student, Rizwane Marzouk, who is a student, and forgive me if I can't see any others. Oh, Ali Gokul over there, who's also a student on the Beta run. So do come up to these people, talk to them, ask them questions. And of course, Dr. Zehra, sorry, I'd just like to emphasize that this academy is a work in progress, and students will be able to register and start. The official launch is yet to come. That's why this is an awareness day, to make people aware of what is being developed and what is to come. And I'd just like to say that this is an online course. It's delivered over the internet. If there are students who are frightened of pressing the on button on the computer and don't know how to negotiate and internet accounts and all of those things frighten you, we will be arranging for basic IT skills workshops. And if there are any people amongst us who would be able to facilitate those, we would also welcome your input and suggestions. But I think, Abbas, you have a few important announcements as well.
I did, however, see a movement among some people who might have wanted to ask a question. I mean, we have a few minutes for that. Somebody wishes to. Yes, please.
Will the online course be supplemented by any contact directly with either the Shaykh himself or any of the other ASCA members?
Okay. The question, as I could hear, is that if the program is online, will there be contact from tutors or some other, like personal contact? Turn to Mona. Yeah.
Yes, indeed. There will be regular meetings. Every region has regular meetings which are led by facilitators. And as we go along and numbers increase in enrollment, there will be more and more facilitators. Each facilitator is assigned up to 10 students. Each lesson, once it is downloaded and received, you will do the assignments. There are very few assignments. There are reflections, tasks for you to reflect upon, and you are also expected to keep a journal throughout the duration of this course. So there will be reflection tasks and there will be assignments which will be submitted to the facilitator, and you will be receiving feedback from your facilitator. In addition, we do hope in the future to arrange for video conferencing globally, where we can sort of sit in cyberspace with Shaykh Fadhlalla, Sidi Hussam, or other people who may have a workshop or other lecture to give that will be of use. And in addition, there are reading lists that support each lesson, which the student is expected to read. But although this sounds, highly academic, and ultimately we hope that this course will achieve accreditation from the University of South Africa. It will be a certificated course. But we are moving away from this notion of concentrating on, I've done this course, I've got a certificate. You are the project. It's not about a certificate. A piece of paper proves nothing. If you are not transformed, then we failed. That's the purpose of this course. So it's as much as it's intellectual or academic, it's also anti-intellectual and anti-academic, because it's about transformation.
Yes, I see another hand. Yep.
What's the duration of the course?
There is set up just behind you in cyber cafes. There are some computers there, through which you can access the Ask Online site. So a lot of the questions that you may have, specifically to do with mechanics, will be answered once you access it. We'll be there to help you access it and to be able to get to grips with the website.
Excellent. Yeah. Yes, please. The duration. But perhaps that too will, if you were to come to us on the cyber cafe, you can go online.
Yeah, but just to answer that, it really is up to you. Each lesson, there are 3 modules, and I think if you got the folder, it tells you a little bit about that. But really it's up to you to how soon you can get through it. But we believe it's about an 18-month program if you do a lesson a week.
Each module has between 12 to 14 lessons. But the idea is that you should be able to study it at your own pace.
Right?
Okay. Then I have a few announcements to make. Cyber Cafe over there will allow you access to the program on the Ask Online website. That's probably something that I would request those who are interested to come along and sort of see the website itself, how it operates. It's a very simple way of being able to access the lessons. For those of you who are a little bit more interested, there will be simply, you'll be able to get into the lessons once you've gotten through each assignment. Each lesson will be open to you by your facilitator. And that will, you can actually be able to pull out the lesson and print it as well. So it will be relatively simple. In the beta launch, we found some people had problems with PDF files and other files, but this is actually will be straight from the website itself. Then there's, if you look, there's a little sort of opening over there. You'll be able to go through to the library where Shaykh will be doing some book signing as well. So for those of you who would like to sort of spend a few minutes looking at our bookstore over there, you're most welcome. And then Shaykh will go through there as well. If there are no other questions, I think that's your last.
Read the Fatiha.
Well, the best part of all programs is the tea at the end of it. Let's break for tea then, and we are here for any other questions or queries.
Before that, let's do the Fatiha.
Certainly.
أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. الحمد لله رب العالمين.
Just a practical issue. At the sign, you're welcome to course go and get your tea, but don't please bring the tea into the library where Shaykh will be sitting. You are not allowed to do that. There will be some actual printed lessons as well, so if you don't want to sit on the computer, you can actually browse the lessons in real life as well. Thank you very much. Tea is in 15 minutes, so you'll have to sort of stick around for that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.